What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Conor McGregor responds to Dana White. On the latest episode of The Ultimate Fighter, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler competed in the highly anticipated Coaches Challenge. This season's Coaches Challenge saw McGregor and Chandler participate in a trivia contest while sitting in ice baths. Although Conor McGregor maintained that he was unbothered by the cold water, Chandler seemed to be in for a rough time right from the jump. As it turns out, a production blunder wound up seeing McGregor and Chandler sitting in the ice baths for half an hour, with UFC President Dana White recently going off on the UFC staff for the situation in an interview with the Mac Life.
These guys did this thing for almost 30 minutes. Dangerous, stupid, irresponsible, and just completely ridiculous on the part of the production crew that handled the Coaches Challenge. Yeah, I was literally pissed off about it. Disgusting.
Okay.
Won't happen again.
For his part, Irish superstar Conor McGregor maintained that whatever error there was on the production team's end, it didn't bother him. In a response tweet, McGregor wrote, "The production were fine and actually quite awesome too. It was no problem at all, but thank you Dana for looking out. All love from the tub." Catch The Ultimate Fighter on ESPN. Tune in next week to see the final episode of the season. Khabib refuses to train Elon Musk. While Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg both enlisted the help of some all-time greats, don't expect to see Hall of Famer Khabib Nurmagomedov in the Tesla founder's corner. According to a report from DD Geopolitics, Musk asked whether or not Nurmagomedov would be willing to coach him for the fight and was shot down with reported representatives of the Eagle, explaining, "He refused because he trains only his guys, whom he knows personally. It could also have a negative impact on the image of the wrestler, since he and Musk have different views on life, alcohol, and drugs." Although it's been a while since White gave a big update on the fight, he recently spoke on an episode of Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, where he dropped some big news regarding his dealings behind the scenes as he works to finalize the fight.
We were talking about the Coliseum for that fight, and I actually did have a meeting with it's the Minister of Culture's team in Italy to actually hold that fight in the Coliseum if it would happen. So
whether or not a deal winds up getting finalized for the two billionaires to fight, only time will tell. Michael Bisping shares info after training with Sean Strickland. With a confirmed UFC 293 main event scrap between Israel Adesanya and Sean Strickland set for September in Australia, the predictions have continued to fly from MMA community members as they go back and forth regarding how the fight will play out. Although it seems as though the consensus is that the last stylebender will be able to use his range and striking to defend the title, Michael Bisping believes that Strickland could wind up pulling off an all-time upset. After training with the controversial #1 contender in the past, Bisping spoke in a video for his YouTube channel to give his thoughts on the fight.
If Sean could take Israel Adesanya down, this could be a really interesting fight because Sean, I've trained with him myself. He's got tremendous cardio. He can go all day, but he's got tremendous grappling. I've trained with him. His ground game is very, very good, very dangerous. Has a very underrated ground game, brilliant sweeps, and obviously very good submissions.
Following the announcement, the opening odds for the fight dropped from OddsShark, with the last stylebender opening as a strong -350 favorite to Strickland's +275 underdog status. With Bisping knowing a thing or two about historic upsets, do you think Strickland has what it takes to shock the world in Sydney? Khamzat Chimaev will dominate Paulo Costa? At UFC 294, streaking two-division contender Khamzat Chimaev will make his highly anticipated return to the octagon to compete against former title challenger Paulo Costa. While the fight is expected to see the winner insert themselves into the middleweight title picture, former heavyweight Brendan Schaub doesn't think the fight will be particularly competitive. During a recent episode of The Schaub Show, the MMA vet gave his breakdown of the fight.
I think Khamzat mops the floor with him. I don't think he's competitive. And then everyone will go back and like, yeah, well, if he fights the same way he fought against Gilbert Burns, like, here's the thing, worst fight of his life. He decided just to stand toe-to-toe with Gilbert Burns, exchange shots, fought like a dumb. Early in his career, in the UFC, still won though.
As Schaub went on to point out, Chimaev seemingly learned his lesson standing and striking for 3 rounds against Gilbert Burns, as evidenced by his fight with Kevin Holland, where Boers immediately took things to the ground. With his highly anticipated return on the horizon in October, only time will tell how things play out between the two. UFC fight updates. Leading up to Ian Gary's highly anticipated showdown with Jeff Neal at UFC 292, unfortunate news has surfaced that Neal has been forced out of the fight with just over a week to go until the two men were set to step into the octagon. According to a video Gary posted on social media, he still plans to be in Boston on August 19th. The question is, will the UFC be able to get him a replacement opponent in time? After Stephen Thompson's fight with Michel Pereira was called off, many hoped he would step in on short notice. However, Neil Magny has since posted a photo on Instagram showing himself signing a contract, leading many fans to believe that he would be stepping in on short notice. In addition, Kevin Holland has also thrown his name in the hat, saying that he's willing to step in if the UFC is willing to make a catchweight fight.
In the week to let me know if somebody pulled out a fight, especially when the fight's like really coming up, but I mean, we can catchweight.
In addition, this week also saw reports surface regarding a Noche UFC bout on September 16th between Nathan Levy and Alan Reyes. The bout will see Levy look to build on a 2-fight win streak, while Reyes looks to make his return to the octagon for the first time since 2017 when he lost to Mike Perry. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love, and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Dana White refusing to pay Wonderboy. While speaking to media members after Tuesday's Dana White's Contender Series premiere, UFC President Dana White spoke about the ongoing situation regarding Stephen Thompson's pay for his canceled UFC 291 fight with Michel Pereira, claiming that there's more at play behind the scenes.
The guy was 3 pounds overweight, whatever it was. You get a piece of his purse if you take the fight. But if you decide you don't want to take the fight, we also offered him another fight. You know, there's a much bigger story behind the scenes. And no, you don't just show up and say, yeah, I'm not going to fight. I want $250,000. Not the way it works. It hasn't worked that way for anybody.
As White went on to explain, in cases like this, first the UFC will look to book a short notice fight for an upcoming card. If that doesn't work out, then the promotion will reimburse a fighter for their camp expenses. At the conclusion of his comments, White told media members that he and the UFC always take care of fighters, and that the two sides are working things out. From the sounds of things, White hopes to have an update on the Wonderboy Thompson situation by Saturday. Stay tuned for updates as they become available. Aljamain Sterling leaks Sean O'Malley messages. Leading up to their UFC 292 clash in Boston, Aljamain Sterling has revealed that his opponent, Sugar Sean O'Malley, actually slid into his DMs to talk some trash. According to Sterling, O'Malley hit his DMs and alleged that the champ looked nervous during a recent TV appearance. After a lighthearted back and forth, with the champ sending a voice message, fake laughing at the comment, Sterling issued the #1 contender a challenge. In a video posted to his YouTube channel, he spoke about the situation.
At the end of this, I said $100 to whoever gets the first takedown. Deal. And he said deal. So we'll see if he actually obliges and tries to shoot and tries to wrestle with me, because it might be an early night for that guy.
Currently, the odds have the Funkmaster sitting as a -295 favorite to Sugar Sean's +220 underdog status. With the fight being a classic stylistic matchup of a striker challenging a grappler, only time will tell how things play out when the two men finally step into the octagon. Dana White reveals bad news. News surfaced this week that the antitrust lawsuit against the UFC has been certified as a class action lawsuit by a U.S. federal court. The case has been in the works for nearly a decade and is led by a number of former UFC fighters, including Kung Lee, Nathan Quarry, and John Fitch, just to name a few. According to popular MMA Twitter user and lawyer Eric McGracken, the UFC could be on the hook for billions. But that's not all. The court could also grant an injunction that stops the UFC from using what they've deemed ruthless and coercive contracts and business practices.
In a nutshell, a bunch of fighters sued the UFC saying they used illegal techniques to acquire dominance in the market, and they abused that dominance in the market. And the effect of that has been to underpay fighters drastically over the years.
As a result of the certification of the class action lawsuit, former fighters can now join in against the UFC with hopes of getting a big payout. According to reports, more than 2,000 current and former fighters are eligible to join. The news is some of the biggest in MMA history, and with plenty of big updates on the horizon, it'll be interesting to see how things play out.